My husband bragged to his buddies. I doubt this joke of a marriage lasts another year. She's not on my level. They cheered. I smiled and replied, "Why wait a year? Let's end it tonight." Then I walked out. That evening, his best friend sent a message that punched the air from my lungs. I doubt this joke of a marriage will survive another year. She's nowhere near my level anymore. Dominic's voice floated cleanly through the French doors to the patio where I froze, a tray of steaks balanced in my hands for his usual Thursday gathering. Through the glass, I watched Nathan, Trevor, and Marcus lift their glasses in approval, laughter sharp, congratulatory. They lounged on my outdoor furniture, drank wine from my collection, and ate food I'd cooked in the backyard of the house I paid for, while toasting my husband's claim that I was beneath him. Nathan even rose to clap Dominic on the back, saying he deserved better. I placed the tray onto the patio table with steady hands, though every nerve screamed. They still hadn't noticed me. For half a minute, I just watched, my husband basking as his friends endorsed his plan to discard me, glowing as they affirmed his contempt for the woman who'd built the life wrapped around them. Before we continue, thank you for showing up for Ruby's story. If you believe no one should be diminished for their success, hit subscribe. It's free and helps amplify voices like hers. Now, on we go. The steaks hissed on the tray, fresh off the grill, while I stood still behind the pillar. Inside, Trevor topped everyone's glasses with the Chateau Margaux I'd saved for our anniversary next month. Marcus had his feet on the ottoman I'd special ordered from Italy after last spring's patio renovation. They looked perfectly at home in the world I'd created, so comfortable inside the success I delivered, while celebrating my husband's plan to leave me. How long have you felt this way? Nathan leaned forward, the way men do when they smell gossip they'll bank for later. Since... Dominic swirled his wine with the confidence of someone who learned from YouTube, not a sommelier. Since Ruby landed the Morrison Industries account. She acts like she single-handedly saved the firm. Her ego lately is unbearable. The Morrison Industries account, the one I pitched alone while Dominic golfed in Palm Springs. 17 meetings, 3 redesigns, a full restructuring of our service offering. That contract drove 40% of our revenue and pulled in 3 more Fortune 500s. You built that company from nothing, Marcus declared with the conviction of a man who's never read a P&L. She just got lucky with a few good quarters. Dominic nodded along, accepting this revision like it was truth, as if he hadn't been jobless when we met.
As if I hadn't scaled a thriving freelance practice into an agency while he chased flop after flop. The crypto platform that vaporized $60,000, the meal kit startup that never launched, the meditation app drowned by free competitors. Each failure gnawed our savings I'd built, while he promised the next big win.
Trevor yanked another bottle from the outdoor wine fridge I'd installed. You need someone who appreciates a visionary, Dom, not someone obsessed with day-to-day grunt work. Visionary was Dominic's favorite introduction at dinner parties, while I did the actual vision. He'd corner people with theories about disrupting industries, while I closed deals, managed staff, and answered midnight client calls. He preached leadership while I led, strategy while I strategized, success while I produced it. Ruby's changed, Dominic continued, wounded tone rehearsed. She used to back my dreams. Now it's all numbers. Revenue this, margins that. She doesn't get that business is more than spreadsheets. Nathan's laugh bounced across the patio I'd designed with the landscape architect. Sounds like she's turned into a corporate drone. No vision, just execution. Just execution. The execution that moved us from a spare bedroom to a downtown suite and 23 employees. The execution that bought his BMW, his designer suits, his country club tea times, and these Thursday nights where he dissected how far I'd supposedly fallen. My phone buzzed. Sarah, our senior developer. Morrison loves the new campaign. Expansion contract ready to sign tomorrow. You did it again. Tomorrow was the biggest meeting of our company's life, a deal that would double revenue and cement us as a major player. And here was my husband, my business partner, name beside mine on every document, calling our marriage a joke. The thing is, Dominic said, pouring number 4 by my count, I've been documenting everything. Every unilateral decision. Every time she undermines my authority. My lawyer says I've got a strong case to take at least half the company, maybe more. His lawyer, Derek Polson from the club, the guy he'd said was just a racquetball partner. They'd been strategizing how to carve up what I built while I was still building it. Smart, Trevor toasted. Get your ducks in a row before she sees it coming. She won't, Dominic assured them, propped up by wine and his echo chamber. Ruby thinks her contracts and decks make her untouchable. She doesn't see the real game. The real game? Plotting to gut me while sleeping in my bed, eating at my table, living on my success, convincing his friends and himself that I was the lucky one. I lifted the tray, the steaks now cooling. Through the doors I watched them, men who'd eaten at my table, celebrated holidays under my roof, basked in my hospitality, while believing I didn't belong at their friends' level. So that's what Thursday nights were. Not poker or strategy, but weekly planning for my humiliation. While I worked late or traveled, they fed Dominic's delusions, building a narrative where he was the victim of an ungrateful wife's success. I pushed open the French doors, the tray still in my hands, the steaks forgotten and chilled. 4 foreheads snapped toward me. Laughter died mid-breath. Dominic's crystal tumbler halted at his lips, amber catching the string lights I'd hung last summer. The quiet was so complete I could hear the neighbor's pool filter humming. Ruby. Dominic's voice cracked, flipping from swagger to busted teenager in a single syllable. We were just, why wait a year? I set the tray down with deliberate calm, using the same measured tone I use when I fire underperforming vendors. Let's end it tonight. No reason you should suffer another 12 months married to someone so far beneath you. Nathan went paper white. Trevor discovered something urgent on his phone. Marcus stumbled back, nearly toppling the citronella candle I'd lit to keep mosquitoes away. But Dominic, my husband of 12 years, the man who'd vowed to love and honor me in front of 200 people, just stared, mouth open, words failing him for once. I turned and walked through the doors, leaving them frozen in a tableau of guilt. My steps echoed on the hardwood as I headed to our bedroom. Chairs scraped, whispers hissed, the panic of men caught not just gossiping but conspiring. In the closet, I pulled my Samsonite set, the gift I bought myself after our first $1 million contract. I opened the largest suitcase on the bed we'd shared 5 years in this house. My hands moved like a scalpel, folding blazers I'd worn to meetings Dominic skipped, packing jewelry I'd bought myself after milestones, stacking designer bags he'd called our success while contributing nothing to earn them. In the bathroom, I gathered the skincare I'd invested in because caring for myself was one thing I could control while running a company and a marriage resenting my success. I grabbed prescriptions, vitamins, the sleeping pills I'd begun to need as the Thursday nights grew longer, louder. Footsteps on the stairs, multiple sets, hesitant, disorganized. Kids approaching a parent uncertain if they'd meet fury, disappointment, or worse, indifference. Ruby, please, can we talk? Dominic filled the doorway, hair wrecked from his hands. Nathan hovered behind him, face torn with guilt and something else. Relief? There's nothing to discuss. I zipped my toiletry bag and set it in the suitcase. You've made yourself clear. I'm beneath you. Our marriage is a joke. You've been meeting Derek Polson about divorce. What exactly is left to say? Color drained at Derek's name. How did you know about your lawyer? I pulled my laptop bag, the one with every password, client contact, and piece of IP I created for our company. The same way I know about the separate account you opened in January. And the way I know you've been telling investors I'm unstable and tanking the company with my ego. Nathan stepped fully into view, his expression answering questions I hadn't known to ask. The guilt wasn't just tonight, it was older, heavier. It was you, I said to him. You sent the anonymous message an hour ago. Check your husband's Thursday meetings. You need to hear what he's saying. Dominic spun, rage he usually reserved for me pivoting to his best friend. You warned her. Nathan squared his shoulders. For the first time, he looked like a grown man, not a fraternity encore. I've been sending her screenshots for 3 weeks. Every chat where you hid assets. Every note about Project Gaslight. Every time you bragged you'd take half of what Ruby built while casting her as the villain. Project Gaslight? I laughed without humor. You named it like a military op instead of a smear campaign against your wife. Trevor and Marcus crept up the stairs, drawn by the disaster they'd authored. They hovered like actors who forgot their lines. Their bravado evaporated in the presence of consequences. The Thursday nights, Nathan went on, voice strengthening, were never poker. They were planning sessions. Dom told us how to document her so-called instability, photos of her working late to prove neglect, recording conversations out of context, building a case that she was the problem while he played long-suffering husband. I folded the last dress, the red one from the Christmas party where Dominic spoke about partnership and shared success, when I knew he hadn't touched our numbers. And you all went along. We thought, Marcus swallowed the rest. You thought what? I faced the men who'd eaten my food, received my kindness, whose wives I'd comforted through their own storms. That it was funny? Justified? That I deserved to be dismantled for daring to be successful? Silence thickened the room. Dominic's hands opened and closed. His jaw worked, hunting for words that could salvage the unsalvageable. But you can't unhear what I heard. You can't unwind 3 months of plotted destruction. You can't unsay she's not on my level while standing inside the house my work bought. I closed the bedroom door with a soft click, louder than any slam. The suitcase wheels whispered along the hall past our wedding gallery, frames of promises that apparently never meant a thing to him. Voices rose behind the door, Dominic turning on Nathan, the friend who finally grew a conscience after months of complicity. The elevator crept, giving me too much time to consider what I was leaving. Not just the house or the marriage, but the version of me that equated love with endless compromise, who shrank her achievement to protect a fragile ego, who paid bills while ignoring that her husband met weekly to script her ruin. The Marriott downtown glittered against the skyline, the city I'd conquered client by client while Dominic played pretend CEO. I crossed the lobby with shoulders back, refusing to look like someone fleeing. The desk clerk with kind eyes didn't ask questions when I booked an executive suite for a week on a card Dominic didn't know existed. My emergency fund, bonuses I never mentioned, because I learned long ago that financial independence is oxygen in a suffocating marriage. On the 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the business district where tomorrow I'd face Morrison Industries, pretending my life hadn't detonated. The suite was sterile, perfect. No memories in the furniture, no ghosts in the corners, no 12-year Scotch laughter that never reached his eyes. My phone shook non-stop. Dominic's messages marched through the stages. Anger. You're being dramatic. Come home now, manipulation. You misunderstood. We need to talk. The false apology. I didn't mean it like that. Then threats. You're destroying our company. Investors will bail. I set the phone on marble and turned the shower to full heat until steam swallowed the room. Under the rainfall, with hotel-grade water pressure our house never managed, I let the full weight land. 12 years, building a life with a man who'd been quietly compiling a case for a war I never knew I was in. Tears came hard, hidden by water, echoing off marble where no one could hear. I stayed until the water ran cold and my skin wrinkled, until I cried out not just betrayal, but the humiliation of missing it. All those Thursdays, I cooked for his gatherings. All those mornings, kissing him goodbye for meetings he claimed to support. All those presentations where he stood beside me, taking credit for work I did. I was acting in a play where everyone knew the ending but me. Wrapped in a robe, night settled over downtown. From this height, The city looked small, manageable, like a problem solvable with the right strategy. I ordered room service, not from hunger, but to remember how to care for myself without factoring someone else's preferences. Salmon, not steak. Pinot Grigio, not bourbon. A chocolate soufflé, because Dominic used to call dessert empty calories, and I had forgotten what it felt like not to be deemed unnecessary. Patricia Winters answered on the second ring, though it was past 9. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone ready for this call. "I've been expecting you, Ruby." Nathan already sent an overview. I stopped mid-bite. "He contacted you 2 hours ago?" "He wants to ensure you have everything to protect yourself and the company. He'll provide sworn testimony about Dominic's financial manipulation and the manufactured instability. Can you be here at 8? Bring bank statements, company records, communications, everything." I agreed, then spent 3 hours organizing my laptop like I organize businesses, folders with surgical labels, Dominic's failed ventures, documentation of every dollar I invested, $60,000 crypto, $40,000 meal kit, $30,000 meditation app, company contributions, every contract I negotiated, client I landed, late night I worked while his office stayed dark, financial manipulation, waiting for whatever Nathan delivered. At midnight, knock. Through the peephole, Nathan, smaller than I'd ever seen him, arms straining around 3 bankers' boxes, swagger gone, replaced by real shame. I opened the door and stepped aside. He set the boxes down, then stood like a teenager caught shoplifting. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "I know it fixes nothing. Watching him poison everyone against you while you kept the company afloat, it's eaten me alive." "Then why stay silent?" I asked, truly wanting to understand how anyone could watch this and do nothing. At first, I thought he was venting. Men gripe, you know? Then he started taking notes on your calls, screenshotting your texts out of context, building a narrative where you were the villain, and we let him. Box 1. Manila folders labeled in Dominic's hand. Financial discrepancies. Instability evidence. Asset documentation. Inside, printed emails from me about normal operations, annotated with his fantasy. Working late became marital abandonment. Please review the contract became controlling behavior. He twisted routine into indictment. "This goes back to January," I said, holding a folder dated 5 months earlier. Nathan nodded. "Right after you closed Samsung. He couldn't pretend anymore. That deal made the truth obvious. His ego couldn't survive it." Box 2. Worse. Photos of me at my desk at 10 p.m., shot through the office window. Screenshots of my LinkedIn posts about growth, highlighted with notes on my narcissism. Even pictures from my sister Claire's birthday, my 2 glasses of wine labeled, "drinking problem." "He asked us to help," Nathan whispered. "Trevor was to report if you lunched with any male clients. Marcus tracked your socials for anything twistable. I was assigned to monitor your staff relationships for inappropriate boundaries." Box 3 was lethal. Financials, but not just ours. Dominic had set up a shadow LLC in Delaware. He'd already been approaching clients for a new venture launching soon. The name? Morrison Strategic Solutions. Close enough to our Morrison digital innovations to confuse, different enough to feign coincidence. My phone pinged. "Sarah. Emergency. Dominic sent all staff email claiming you're having a mental health crisis. He's assuming temporary control. What do I do?" I showed Nathan. His face blanched. "He's escalating." I called Patricia on speaker. "He just told the company I'm unwell." "Forward it now," she snapped into focus. "I'm filing for an emergency injunction. This is defamation and possibly fraud. Nathan, are you there?" "Yes." "Send everything on Project Gaslight. Every message, note, shred. Ruby, do not reply or contact staff yet. Let me move first." After we hung up, Nathan and I worked in silence, scanning, sorting, building the case that would protect my company and my name. At 2 a.m., he asked the question I dreaded. "Do you hate me for not speaking sooner?" I considered offering forgiveness I didn't feel, but I was done with polite lies. I don't know how I feel about you, Nathan. You watched my husband plan my destruction and you helped. A late conscience doesn't erase that. He nodded, absorbing it. For what it's worth, Sophie said she'd leave me if I didn't warn you. She asked, if you can watch this happen to her, how do I trust you won't do it to me? Smart woman, I said, and meant it. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. Ruby, it's Trevor's wife, Linda. Her voice was shaken. He came home drunk and confessed. I'm disgusted. I have recordings. Recordings? He'd come back from Thursdays bragging. I started recording after week 3. Hours of him describing their plans, laughing that you had no idea. Another ally from an unexpected corner. I've already uploaded them. I'll share with your lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. If Trevor can join something this cruel, what else could he do to me if I ever out-earned him? After Linda hung up, I watched the city sleep. Somewhere, Dominic paced our house watching his scheme collapse, friends flipping, his lawyer advising surrender, the staff choosing the leader who actually led. At 4 a.m., Nathan left, moving like each step hurt. The irony, he said at the door, is that Dominic was never below you. You would have carried him forever if he'd been grateful instead of resentful. You loved him enough to make him equal even when he wasn't. That's what he never understood. I stood alone, watching sunrise ink the horizon. 4 hours would have to do. Today's investor meeting would decide not only the company's future, whether Dominic's story would shatter under evidence. Quick shower, sharp black suit, the one I wore to close Samsung. Makeup to hide exhaustion. Patricia called as I left the hotel. Injunction granted. Dominic is barred from accounts or decisions without board approval. He'll be served this morning, probably right before the meeting. He'll be furious. Let him. Anger makes people sloppy. I also sent the evidence packet to each board member. They'll review before we convene. Our office tower stood like a monument to my work. I arrived at 6 via the executive entrance. Only security and the cleaning crew, who recognized me. They'd seen me at all hours for years. Dominic's badge rarely beeped before 10. Nathan was already in the conference room, laying out documents with methodical precision. We worked wordlessly at first. Stations of evidence around the room. Financials at one end, client testimonials at another. Project Gaslight centered where Dominic would have to look at it. He'll try to spin it as marital issues, not business, Nathan said, adjusting the screen. That's his opening. Make it personal. And then we show slide 17, his LLC filing for a competing firm. Nothing says professional betrayal like poaching your own clients while cashing our checks. Sarah arrived at 8, jaw set. Half the staff will testify. The other half are updating resumes in case this implodes. It won't. Not for them, I said, faking confidence until it felt real. By 9:30, board members filtered in. Margaret Chin, expression unreadable, took a seat. James Harrison from our biggest account, not bored but invited for stakeholder weight. Investors Robert Kim and David Aonkwo, who'd questioned Dominic's contributions before. Questions Dominic dodged while I diplomatically covered. At 9:55, Patricia sat beside me. A signal this wasn't just business. Legal shadows filled the room. At exactly 10, Dominic entered in the Tom Ford suit I'd bought for our 10th anniversary, the one he wore accepting an industry award for work I'd done while he was in Cabo. His cologne reached the table first. He paused at the room's layout. Nathan beside me, Patricia's presence, the board's set faces. He shot a look at Nathan that could freeze fire. Nathan didn't flinch. Dominic recovered, salesman smile snapping on. Appreciate everyone coming on short notice, he began, shuffling note cards. I know there are concerns about disruptions to leadership. I want to assure you that despite my wife's current emotional... I'll stop you there, Margaret said, voice slicing clean. We've reviewed counsel's documentation. Your claims about Mrs. Morrison's mental state are not only baseless, They appear deliberately fabricated. His smile flickered. I understand Ruby has painted. The picture is yours. David held up a printout. Your group chat about Project Gaslight, strategizing false instability. These are your words, are they not? I clicked the first slide, Dominic's message from 6 weeks ago. Keep documenting everything. We need to show a pattern of erratic behavior, even if we have to create it. The room emptied of sound. Dominic cycled through shock, anger at Nathan, then desperate calculation. Those are out of context, he tried. Nathan has his own agenda. My agenda, Nathan said evenly, is the truth. I watched you plan to destroy the woman who built this company while you contributed nothing but obstruction and stolen credit. You were part of it, Dominic blurted, revealing more than he meant. You encouraged— Yes, Nathan said, and I was wrong. I'm trying to make it right. Next slide. Contracts color-coded by who closed them. My column, a wall of blue. Dominic's, empty. Over the last 24 months, I said, voice steady with earned authority. I closed 17 major contracts totaling $32 million. In the same period, Mr. Morrison closed 0, while drawing a salary of $400,000. James Harrison leaned in. Let's be plain. Harrison Tech never considered Dominic a reason to work with your firm. Every strategic discussion and innovation came from you. We tolerated his presence out of respect for you. He's never contributed a single useful insight. Dominic's color drained. The room seemed to shrink around a man realizing his reputation lived only in his head. Next slide. Registration for Morrison Strategic Solutions, his shadow firm designed to siphon clients. That concludes my presentation, I said, adrenaline steadying into purpose. You have what you need to decide on future leadership. Derek Polson had been silent, grim deepening with each document. Now he leaned toward his client with the cool detachment of a man cutting losses. We need to discuss options, privately. Margaret stood, smoothing her skirt. We'll reconvene tomorrow to formalize the transition. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you consider Ms. Winter's buyout carefully. It's more generous than a court would be, given this. The room scattered with the awkward shuffle of escape. Dominic stayed seated, staring at his own words. Project Gaslight, projected like a confession. Nathan paused at the door, something between pity and relief on his face, then left. That night, alone in the hotel with Chinese takeout cooling, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Ruby, this is Linda Chin, Trevor's wife. Her voice trembled. I need to tell you what's been happening behind your back. He confessed, but it's worse. Dominic's been coaching them on how to manage wives. He called it maintaining frame and strategic relationship management. My stomach turned. Coaching them? How? I found Trevor's journal, pages of Dominic's playbook. Document your wife's spending to brand her irresponsible. Gaslight social situations so she doubts her memory. Position yourself as rational while painting her as emotional. He's been using it on me for months. I thought I was losing my mind. Parallel damage. Dominic wasn't just planning my fall. He was teaching others to dismantle their wives' credibility. Thursday poker as a masterclass in manipulation. I confronted Trevor, Linda said, voice firming. Made him read his own words. He's cut Dominic off. Agreed to counseling. But I don't know if we survive this. After she hung up, I sat in the dark, city lights glittering like far stars. Sarah texted, "You need to see the country club." A photo followed, Dominic, disheveled and drunk, holding court at the bar. Patrons leaned away. The bartender's patience looked rationed. An hour later, Barbara Fitzgerald, queen of our social grapevine, called. I was at the club. He's there daily since the split. He tells anyone that he built your company and you were just a pretty face. The delusion is complete. Regulars call it story time with Dom and bet on which fantasy he'll claim next. Yesterday it was a trading algorithm. Today, a meditation app Apple tried to buy. Karma tasted sharp and complicated. Part satisfaction, part grief for the man he might have been if ego hadn't devoured him. A Facebook ping. Emma Rodriguez, Marcus's girlfriend. I'm ending things, but you need to see this. Screenshots. Outreach plans to our clients after the divorce, claiming I'd had a breakdown. Offering continuity via Dominic's new agency. Drafted emails. A poaching timeline. Logos mimicking ours. Worst, a list of employees to target with notes on vulnerabilities. Sarah, single mom, needs stability. Follow the money. Kevin, desperate for promotion. Easy to sway. Predators cataloging prey. I forwarded everything to Patricia. Her reply was instant. This changes everything. Adding fraud to our leverage. He'll accept any terms now. 6 months crawled by with the slow ache of recovery. I moved from the hotel to a furnished downtown place, space untouched by Dominic. The company stabilized, then thrived, without his interference, landing 3 major clients who'd waited on leadership clarity. Nathan proved invaluable as operations director, guilt powering work ethic, but I still couldn't see him without recalling those 3 months of silence. The morning the divorce finalized dawned gray and drizzly, weather that matched the melancholy of officially ending something that had already died. I dressed in a new suit Dominic had never seen, makeup for strength, not softness. Patricia met me in her lobby, professional mask, warm squeeze of my shoulder. In the conference room, leather and stale coffee scented the air. Dominic was already seated, and the transformation stopped me. The man who once strutted in Tom Ford now wore a wrinkled Target button-down. His face had thinned, 40 pounds gone with his delusions. The BMW he loved more than marriage was replaced by a decade-old Honda. His hands shook around a pen. His attorney, the third after Derek dropped him and the next quit, looked fresh from law school, overwhelmed by our evidence. Terms are as discussed. Patricia slid the settlement across. Mrs. Morrison retains full ownership of Morrison Digital Innovations, all IP, the house, all investment accounts. Mr. Morrison receives personal effects, the crypto wallets from his failed ventures, and his grandfather's watch. No alimony, no future claims. 5-year industry non-compete. His signature looked like a child's scrawl, nothing like the old flourish he'd slap on contracts he hadn't earned. He couldn't meet my eyes. I know you won't believe me, he whispered, but I'm sorry. I looked, truly looked, at the hollowed version of the man who once charmed with borrowed confidence. You're right, I said quietly. I don't. He signed the last page and left, footsteps echoing like a funeral for the person he pretended to be. 2 weeks later, a Forbes journalist arrived with a photographer, determined to tell what she called the story of the year. Catherine Wells was sharp and direct, disinterested in quarterly charts, hungry for the raw truth. Betrayal turned to fuel. Tell me about the night you found out, she said, recorder between us on the table where Dominic once claimed my work as his. I told her everything. The Thursday gathering, the tray of steaks, my husband calling our marriage a joke, Nathan's conscience waking, Project Gaslight exposed, my team rallying while his friends scattered. What strikes me, Catherine said, scribbling in shorthand, is you didn't seek revenge. You revealed truth and let consequences land. The best revenge, I said, is building something so strong that the person who tried to wreck you becomes irrelevant. Dominic thought I was beneath his level. Now he's at a startup in Buffalo while I run a company valued at $12 million. The universe has a sense of balance. Her piece ran with the headline, How Ruby Morrison Built a Digital Empire While Divorcing Deadweight. 2 million readers in week 1. My inbox flooded. Women with similar scars grateful to see survival alchemized into success. A month later, a handwritten letter arrived from Buffalo. Dominic's shaky script filling 3 pages of what he likely believed was contrition. Even there, the delusion lingered. He wrote about our success, how he helped build, how he was a victim of circumstance, not the architect of collapse. He suggested that once emotions cooled, we might discuss him consulting. his expertise could add value. I filed it in evidence/closed and locked the drawer, not because I needed it, but to remember that some people can stand in ruins they made and still imagine themselves the hero. That year's holiday party was at Vincenzo's, the Italian spot where Dominic once held court with clients he hadn't earned. We rented the upper floor to celebrate not just financial wins but collective survival. Sarah orchestrated everything, from the wine list to seating charts designed to separate the most talkative. As dinner wound down and the wine loosened shoulders, Sarah stood to toast. I expected numbers or client wins. Instead, she lifted her glass, eyes bright. "To survival," she said, "and to leaders who earn their titles instead of stealing them." Glasses rang. Then, unexpectedly, our CFO Margaret stood, voice wavering with emotion I'd never seen in 5 years. "Since we're sharing," she said, clutching her glass, "my ex convinced me I was terrible with numbers. Me, with a master's in accounting. He checked my work, questioned every calculation, eroded my confidence until I nearly quit finance. It took 2 years of therapy after our divorce to realize he was threatened by my salary." Kevin cleared his throat. "My college girlfriend called my startup playing with computers when I was building the app that sold to Microsoft. She said real jobs require suits." The stories poured out, a dam breaking. Every person there had been miniaturized by someone who claimed to love them. We weren't just colleagues. We were veterans of the same war, different fronts. 11 months later, an invitation on cream card with gold script. Nathan and Sophie's wedding. I debated going, the wound of his complicity still tender, but Sophie called warm and sincere. "You saved us both," she said. "Nathan from becoming a man I couldn't love, and me from marrying him if he had." The ceremony was at a vineyard outside the city, rows of grapes stretching to mountains washed in purple. I sat 3 rows back, close enough to see, not close enough to pretend at friendship that no longer was. Nathan fiddled with his tie until Sophie appeared in simple ivory silk. At the reception, after family toasts, Nathan unexpectedly tapped his glass. The tent hushed. His eyes found mine. "Before I talk about Sophie," he began, "I need to address something." He inhaled. 11 months ago, I participated in something shameful. I watched a friend plan to destroy his wife's career and reputation. I not only stayed silent, I helped. I took screenshots. I documented conversations. I enabled a delusion because it was easier than confronting the truth. The tent went still. Sophie held his arm, proud. "Ruby Morrison is here tonight," he continued, heads turning toward me. "She built an empire while her husband plotted her downfall. She showed grace when I finally grew a conscience at the last minute. But the real hero is my wife, Sophie, who told me, 'If you can watch this happen to her, how do I know you won't do it to me?'" Applause grew from polite to thunderous. Sophie kissed his cheek, whispered something that made him smile. I raised my glass, an acknowledgement of an apology I hadn't expected but needed. Later, as couples swayed under string lights, Sophie found me. "He tortures himself about those months," she said softly. "He wakes asking what would have changed if he'd spoken sooner." "What happened, happened," I said. "We all ended up where we needed to be." 3 weeks later, planning my mother's 70th consumed my calendar. The country club's coordinator, the same woman who'd handled our anniversary 2 years prior, didn't mention the irony while we picked menus and flowers. The grand ballroom would hold 80 guests, 3 generations of Morrison women and the people who stood by us through triumph and wreckage. That night, Mom, elegant in navy, stood ringed by her sisters, my cousins, and my teen niece Lily, fresh off a coding win. I saw our lineage, my grandmother's era, told to be grateful for scraps. My mother's, working twice as hard for half the recognition. Mine, fighting for parity while juggling tradition. Lily's, expecting fairness as default. By the dessert table, champagne loosened Mom's honesty. "I saw it," she said quietly, "how Dominic dismissed you, took credit for your work. I should have said something. Why didn't you? She glanced at my father, steady and loving after 45 years. We were taught marriage is private, that interference does more harm. I was wrong. Watching you rebuild showed me. I might not have listened, I admitted. Sometimes we have to find the truth ourselves. 3 Tuesdays later, I was choosing olive oil at Whole Foods when I saw him. Dominic stood in the pasta aisle, comparing generic brands with the concentration of someone counting dimes. The Target shirt had seen better days. Pant hems were fraying. The wedding ring I'd placed on his finger 5 years earlier was gone, a pale groove left behind. He looked up. Our eyes met across 15 feet of organic produce and broken promises. For a second, he moved toward me, mouth opening. But my face, no anger, no hate, just pure indifference, stopped him. I looked through him as if he were glass and returned to reading labels. He abandoned his half-filled cart and fled toward the exit, shoulders hunched like a man leaving a crime scene. I kept shopping, adding ingredients for a dinner with potential investors in my second company, a venture Dominic would read about in business pages he couldn't afford. If Ruby's climb from betrayal to brilliance kept you to the last line, smash that like button now. My favorite moment? When she looked through Dominic in that grocery aisle. Quiet power, pure and simple. What was yours? Tell me in the comments. And for more stories of strength, justice, and sweet redemption, subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss an episode.